The hijab debate: Islam versus Christian views on modesty. Modesty is a concept that spans many religious traditions, and two major world religions, Islam and Christianity, both emphasize it, albeit with different practices and interpretations. One of the most visible symbols of modesty in Islam is the hijab, a headscarf worn by many Muslim women as a sign of faith, modesty, and identity. In Christianity, while modesty is also valued, it is expressed differently and without a universal symbol like the hijab. Let's explore the differing views of Islam and Christianity on modesty, focusing on the role of the hijab in Islamic tradition and how Christian thought approaches the idea of modest dress. The Islamic perspective on hijab and modesty. In Islam, the hijab is a key element in the practice of modesty, especially for women. The term hijab literally means barrier or partition in Arabic, and it signifies the broader concept of modesty in both appearance and behavior. Islamic teachings on modesty are rooted in the Quran and Hadith, which provide guidelines on how both men and women should conduct themselves in a dignified and modest manner. For women, the hijab is often seen as a form of protection, a way to preserve their dignity and avoid objectification. The Quran, 24:31, advises women to cover their bodies and draw their veils over their bosoms, to maintain modesty and honor. The wearing of the hijab is not solely about covering the hair but is a part of a larger principle of humility, self-respect, and spiritual focus. Many Muslim women view the hijab as a personal choice and an act of devotion to God, Allah, with a deep sense of empowerment tied to it. Modesty in Islam is not only about clothing, it also pertains to behavior, speech, and intentions. Men, too, are instructed to lower their gaze and dress modestly. While the hijab is often the focal point of discussions about modesty, it is part of a broader framework within Islamic ethics that governs how individuals, men and women, should present themselves in society. The Christian view on modesty. Christian views on modesty differ significantly from Islamic practices. While modesty is highly valued in many Christian denominations, there is no uniform or prescribed dress code akin to the hijab. Instead, Christian modesty is often a more generalized principle, with interpretations varying across different sects and cultures. The Bible contains numerous references to modesty, particularly in the New Testament. For example, 1 Timothy chapter 2 verse 9-10 states, "Women should adorn themselves in respectable apparel, with modesty and self-control, not with braided hair and gold or pearls or costly attire, but with what is proper for women who profess godliness, with good works." This passage highlights a concern for inner virtue rather than external appearance, urging Christians to focus on humility and spiritual worth over material or physical display. The emphasis is on avoiding vanity and ostentation, rather than prescribing a specific garment like the hijab. In some Christian traditions, particularly in more conservative or evangelical sects, modest dress is encouraged, and women may wear long skirts or dresses as a symbol of their faith and modesty. However, this is more a cultural practice than a religious requirement. There is no universally recognized modest dress code in Christianity, which makes the approach to modesty far less rigid compared to Islam. Key differences: the role of the hijab and cultural interpretations. One of the most striking differences between Islam and Christianity regarding modesty is the role of specific religious symbols like the hijab. In Islam, the hijab serves as a visible marker of religious identity and adherence to divine commandments concerning modesty. Its importance is both spiritual and social, as it helps Muslim women navigate public spaces while maintaining their faith and self-respect. In contrast, Christian modesty tends to focus more on individual humility and moral character than on specific outward symbols of faith. While conservative Christian groups may emphasize modest dress, there is no single garment like the hijab that encapsulates the concept of modesty for all Christians. Instead, modesty in Christianity is often internalized, focusing on one's actions, attitudes, and spiritual connection to God. Cultural interpretations also play a significant role in how modesty is understood and practiced in both religions. In Islamic majority societies, the hijab is often viewed as an important part of religious and cultural identity. However, there is debate even within Muslim communities about the role and necessity of the hijab, with some women choosing to wear it as an act of devotion, while others see it as a matter of personal choice or cultural tradition. In Christian majority societies, modesty is often shaped by local customs and societal norms rather than strict religious guidelines. While Christian modesty is still highly valued, especially in conservative communities, it is expressed in ways that reflect the cultural and historical context in which believers live. Conclusion: the hijab debate illustrates the complex ways in which Islam and Christianity approach modesty. In Islam, modesty is both a spiritual and external practice, embodied by the hijab and other modest clothing. It serves as a physical reminder of faith and a marker of identity. In Christianity, modesty is more focused on internal virtues, with less emphasis on specific outward symbols. The two religions share a common respect for modesty, but their expressions of it differ significantly, reflecting broader theological and cultural distinctions. Understanding these differences is key to fostering greater respect and dialogue between the two faiths in an increasingly globalized world.